I feel like it's kind of just fantasy PORN for women in the sense that it's kind of sending the message that even if you find yourself in a DV type situation with someone, don't worry because your ex-boyfriend from high school who has always loved you more than you loved yourself and remains head over heels in love with you well into your adult years is always going to be there to catch you and be like a safety net for you. Or like a get out of jail free card, essentially. And I just feel like, have we learned nothing from Severus Snape? I mean, it's basically a Severus Snape type of situation that they have going on here. And coincidentally, both of the girls' names are Lily. Like, Snape was in love with Lily Potter, Harry's mom, for her entire life. And even after she died, we never saw Snape with a partner or even interested in dating anyone else. Even after Lily married his bully and tormentor, James Potter, and had a literal child with him, he still loved her till the end of all time and only had eyes for her. And his heart was totally devoted only to her, to the point where he dedicated his entire life and gave up his life ultimately to protect Harry, the child of her and the guy that bullied him. And so I feel like the same kind of dynamic is basically being presented in this It Ends With Us movie, with Atlas being the Snape figure. So Atlas was basically just single this whole time because he only has eyes for Lily, has been pining after her for however many years since they first met and had their relationship in high school. Even after she goes off and full on marries and has a whole ass child with another dude. Yes, she ultimately comes to the right decision to leave him in the end, but she still has a part of Ryle in her life always in the form of her daughter, Emmy. And so it's kind of just like, I don't know. I feel like it's just this unrealistic fantasy scenario that women would like to have. But the fact that Atlas is there to just like catch her and forgive everything. I mean, they show Ryle being super jealous and toxic, right? Because that's his whole personality. But does that mean that, okay, just because Atlas doesn't have the same kind of trauma and anger issues that Ryle has, that doesn't mean that he's not a man. That doesn't mean he's not a human being. Like, I don't buy the idea that Atlas is just not jealous or doesn't harbor any feelings of resentment whatsoever towards Lily. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that in real life, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm sure there are some cases where it happens, but in real life, for the most part, I don't think most dudes would do this. Like, no matter how in love they are with a girl, if the fact of the matter is that she decides to move on and, you know, essentially move on to like a hotter, more successful on paper version by society's standard person over him, like Ryle is a neurosurgeon, which is basically at the top of the food chain, plus he's kind of like universally considered to be really handsome and ripped. Atlas is, not too shabby himself, but he's like a restaurant owner and he's more mild-mannered, you could say. So it's like, I don't buy the idea that that type of a stand-up guy with not a bad bone in his body is just going to voluntarily stay single this whole time on the off chance that you decide to finally come to your senses and leave your abusive husband. Like, no, any self-respecting guy, no matter how, like, first of all, any guy that does that, a society would label him a simp, right? And again, a lot of people might not like me for saying this, but I'm just gonna say it. Most women, even if you had a guy like that who was just in love with you throughout all your mistakes and even your relationships with other men after they didn't work out, would you respect a guy who like waited around and basically allowed himself to be your doormat? Like, waited patiently while you had an entire relationship and marriage and kid with the hot alpha guy, and then only after the alpha guy mistreats you, you come running back to your safety net. Like, yes, on one hand, I'm sure you would be happy and thankful that you had an Atlas in your life, but realistically speaking though, I don't think that most women would respect that kind of a guy who can't even respect himself enough to like move on from his love for you, if that makes sense. Also, just from my observation, again, I don't see this dynamic. I don't see most guys, no matter how nice they are, no matter how in love they happen to be with a certain girl, I haven't seen an example of any self-respecting guy in real life ever like hold himself back or reserve himself for a girl that clearly chose somebody else over him. If I was a man, I would not wait around indefinitely for any girl like that, especially after she's already gotten married to another guy. Like, Snape should have been done with Lily the moment that she decided to choose James and get married to him and have a kid with him. Snape should have been done and moved on to the next girl expeditiously. I understand that this is all fiction at the end of the day and we're supposed to suspend our disbelief, but I'm just saying, no man, no person with a shred of self-dignity would be that self-sacrificing for someone who gave very little in return to them, you know? This scenario is pure fantasy PORN for women. Like, this does not happen in real life. A guy is not just going to, like, stay there at your beck and call like a little bitch after you've already gotten into a relationship with the most Mr. Alpha neurosurgeon guy who lives in a penthouse. And you wouldn't respect a guy who did that anyways. You would be repulsed.